Hello, selectors, and welcome to the Lifeburst Podcast.
Yay!
I am one of your hosts, Andrew.
I'm Tiffany. I'm your other host. Welcome to the Lifeburst Podcast, a Wixoss podcast where we talk about all the Wixoss things and only the Wixoss things.
It's true. It's been a little while, Tiffany.
Yeah, we took a little break. We had some family in town. Mother's Day happened. It was a whole thing.
Mother's Day happened. Guys, you should all appreciate your L-Rig in your life.
Mama.
Your mama.
Your mama.
So, Tiffany,
Yes.
hey, something
Hi.
special real quick before we dive super into it. We're going to be talking about the best cards of Spread Diva.
Ooh.
Hey, did you know this is the 50th podcast?
Is this really the 50th
This is
podcast?
number 50.
Wow.
I know. Crazy, right?
That is kind of crazy. That's very mind-boggling to me.
50 and currently with 714 subscribers.
Woohoo! Thank
So-
you everyone for subscribing.
Yeah, thank you all selectors. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate it.
Yes.
Hey.
Hey.
So, we're going to be talking about Spread Diva. We're a little late on talking about the best cards of Spread Diva, but that's because, real life happens sometimes, and I wanted to make sure that we got you guys out those deck lists. Feels like a lot of you guys really like the deck lists, so we prioritized that over the individual cards. But we can talk about the individual cards now.
That's what we're doing.
That's exactly what we're doing. And I wanted to also give a shout out to someone we're going to be talking about this card in just a second, but Ocdillon with the comments. Hey, Ocdillon, thank you for your comment about ProtoEnergy. I'm going to be talking about it right now because you actually inspired me to test it a bit more than what I originally looked at, and you were right. It's a good card.
And that's why we appreciate everybody that leaves comments, because we do read all of them, and sometimes you guys are smarter than us.
Yeah, it's surprising specifically with ProtoEnergy, right? So
Let's jump into it.
I'm going to be doing the lightning round and going into everything, but I want to take a little bit extra time on ProtoEnergy because Ocdillon brought it up, and he has made some good points.
What's his comment say? Or their comment? What does their comment say?
It's basically saying that we should look into it a bit more, because if you ignore the thing that it says here, like the main part of it, it actually ends up being kind of just like Hakat in yellow or Hakat in white, and Hakat's a good card. I don't know if you guys know that, but Hakat in white is actually kind of really cool too, because it's like that's an off color that you don't normally get that kind of card filtering for. You get it when you pay for it, but getting it for free like that's pretty cool. So what does ProtoEnergy do? Well, it enters and you get to look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You can reveal up to 1 Tamago Memorial full armed from it, and then add it to your hand, and then put the rest of the cards put one of them on the top of your deck, and then the rest of them on the bottom. Now, when you look at it as, hey, can this get me Tamago Memorial? The answer is probably not. It's got about a 23% chance to get you Tamago Memorial. It's
Oh no.
not good. Not
Oh,
good.
no.
Right? But if you look at it without it, where you just take that part out and you say, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put one of them on the top of your deck, and then put 2 of them on the bottom, ends up actually being really good. And so
Yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
Especially if you're playing that with other decks that will allow you to draw a card.
So I did a super unofficial test, and then we did some real tests on it, where I literally just pulled out 3 different types of decks. I took out one that's like, I know it needs card filtering. I took out another deck that it's aggro, it could use card filtering, but it could pass on it too. And I took out a deck that likes card filtering, but doesn't necessarily, it's got abundance of it already. And I basically just shuffled it and looked at the top 3 and then kept being like, well, how often do I want to just put 1 on top, 2 on bottom? And the answer, surprisingly, is about 75% in all of them. So you end up in this scenario where you're like, actually...
I would say that I do that with Hakat as well.
Yeah, there are scenarios where you're like, with Hakat, you're like, the other option that comes up a lot is you want to put all 3 on the bottom. You rarely put 2 on the top. And if you put 3 on the top, I guess you can do that. But
It's a power move. Very confident of you.
So it ends up being kind of a white Hakat. Ends up being kind of cool, kind of good deck. If you
I
wanna
like
go
the
use that.
art.
Yeah, I like it too. So I actually like it better. Tamago Memorial, not so much. We're not going to be talking about Tamago Memorial.
Uh-oh, spoilers.
I know. But let's do the lightning round officially now.
Thank you for your comment.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to do the lightning round. These are the cards that are not really great enough for us to spend a ton of time on, but worth mentioning. Tama Boundary is a 1 mana or 1 mana, look at me saying mana. 1 enter. It's a 1 enter Elrig that allows you to basically bounce a card, right? That's unheard of right now in white and as cheaply as possible, right? But it has a chance to fail, so I wouldn't run it if I were you guys. The other cards here.
I will say that for Tamago Boundary, that art is absolutely exquisite.
Pretty much what everyone says. That art is the best.
Oh,
part
it
of
is. I mean, look at the rim lighting is just beautiful.
I know, but we're not spending too much time on it. We're moving along to Chisel, Blessed Beauty, which basically is just a it's basically just during your opponent's turn, this Signy gains Shadow level 2. It's okay. It's not amazing. It's got some kind of nice abilities that blanks out, vanillas out things, but the biggest problem with it is that it's a level 1 with a life burst, and generally speaking, you try to avoid level 1s with a life burst. There's going to be better level 1s that can get Shadow. I just put this on here as a card that is pretty okay. Nova, on the other hand, is probably a little better than okay, and even though I'm biased, because I like Nova, it's kind of wacky, right? It makes your opponents play around it because it's so defensive. What it can do basically is stop a lane from attacking, and also it also bounces itself back to your hand, so it's strangely relevant sometimes against the face of discard. You will always sort of have a third Signy to play with it. But because the opponent can play around it, it's not actually fantastic. It's only okay, but it can be defensive. So if you're looking for a deck that's like needs to refuel its hand, needs to be really defensive, and can kind of maybe take advantage of this ability, it's a fine ability to have. The next one is Umir Memorial. Now, this is on here again, because again, we have biases, I guess. And
Yeah,
Tiffany,
I love Umir.
Tiffany loves an Umir.
If you've been a long-time listener, you know I stan all the ancient surprise girls.
Now, Umir is kind of weird because it's super, super, super okay. Like, all of its abilities are pretty averagely okay.
It's super okay.
Well, here's the thing, right? You could put an Umir in your deck, and it's not going to hurt your deck. Like, it's going to probably help it, to be all honesty. What it does, basically, its job is when you need a level 1 blue card, this is a level 1 blue card. For all other points in the games, this is a way to draw a card. Now, there is some power in having, instead of a 40 card deck, having a 39 card deck, because if you have a 39 card deck, the chances are higher that you'll hit the cards that you want, right? 1 out of 40 is more than 1 out of 39. You can play this in more than one card. It just is a little worse. It's usually just probably played as a 1-of. If you need a blue Signy that hits, it's a level 1 and also has a really good life burst. That's when I would play it as. It's not like an amazing card. And I should be mentioning at this point, all the cards are going to be on the screen here. So even though I'm not going over them in great detail in terms of what they are, we'll read the ones that really matter in a little bit. The next one is Kandaloa, Azure Angel. Hey, it's got an enter ability that you can freeze up to 1 target Signy on your opponent's field for every blue Elrig you have.
I mean, if you have 3 blue Lyrics...
You freeze up your entire opponent's field.
Man,
yes.
That's annoying.
There's certainly going to be people out there, cough, cough, Tommy, who are really going to like the fact that you can freeze out your opponent's field. Now, is freezing good on its own to do like, freeze tribal? Probably not. But it does have a powerful effect we haven't really seen before, which is basically freeze your entire opponent's field on not a level 3. But the downside, you do have to be playing nothing but mono blue Elrigs, but I think this is the start of like, hey, mono blue is a viable path to go if you want to go for it.
I suppose so.
Yeah. Moving right along, the next one that we've got is Halbert Full Armed. Now, the reason why this is on the list here and not on the, like, we're talking about it a lot, you'll see it in some red lists here as a 1-of or a 2-of. It's mainly for its first ability, which is once per turn when an upped Signy on your field becomes the target of an ability or an effect the opponent controls, or of your opponent's assist Elrig or life burst, right? That's important that it's assist Elrig or life burst. You can pay red, colorless if you do crush one of your opponent's life cloth. Now, crushing one of your opponent's life cloth is a very, very strong thing to do in Wixoss. It's probably one of the strongest things you can do.
Well, it's how you win the game.
Right.
So.
Which is why this is so expensive. And not only is it expensive, and this is the more important part, 4 enter is doable. Red enter is very specific and a lot harder. So is it a fantastic card? The answer is no. It's expensive and it's tough to do. There's going to be a card later in set 9 that basically makes crushing an opponent's life cloth for free possible.
Ooh.
And that is, now you're talking. Now you're saying words I like. But this is going to be a red card. When it pops up, you're going to need to know how to play around it. Moving right along, you've got the Hanyo Memorial Natural Proxine. Hey, this is such a weird card.
I think it's Pyrozine. Hanayo Memorial Natural Pyrozine.
Great. Love it. This is a weird card, so I'm going to read it out actually completely here.
Okay.
All right. It's, to be clear here, a red level 2, 5,000 power, right? At the beginning of your attack phase, if there's no cards in your enter zone, the base power of the Signy, the base level of the Signy becomes 3, and its base power becomes 12,000.
Until the end of your opponent's next end phase.
Yeah, so basically it becomes a level 3, which is weird, because what if you have 2 level 3s, now suddenly you have a weird board that's 3/3/3, you have to do limit stuff, it's strange, right? But on the flip end, what is the most awkward level of Signy? The answer is 2, so this becoming a level 3 so that you can still make 3/3/1 splits. Kind of cool, it's possible.
I guess so.
The other auto ability is, at the beginning of your attack phase, you may discard a total of 2 red cards or jewel cards. If you do, you can vanish target Signy with the opponent's field with less level or equal level to the Signy.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, there's the payoff, right?
Gotcha.
So now you can vanish level 3s by discarding 2 cards, which is something that's difficult for red to do normally. Plus, technically, it is quote-unquote free. But you do have to discard 2 cards. That is harder to do.
Well, you also have to have 0 enter in your enter zone.
Yeah, I feel like red would be like, since it burns the candle at both ends, is able to do it. I suppose
so.
There is a jewel thing here. It's like, hey, you could do this. This is not a jewels payoff, guys. This is a card that you might play in your jewels deck, but it's not like, yes, now we're doing it. I have everything I can do to fight atoms and cosmos. Let's go. You're not gonna get a jewel payoff until set 9. But it's a start. This is basically a mono red card. You're going to see it sometimes. It might be a one of in like an X deck as just an easy way to kill level 3s.
I think they're both mono red cards.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Anyways, so that's going to exist sometimes on your field. And then the last slide here is going to be our green slide. We're going to be talking about Hideyoshi. Hideyoshi. Thank you, Tiffany. You're the best. Jade,
you just pronounce it 2 letters at a time.
Jade General Queen. And again, this is a strange one too, so I'm going to read it out fully. If an auto, enter, or action ability of your opponent's Signy activates, you may put 2 cards underneath this Signy into its owner's trash. If you do, the activated ability instead does nothing. That is pretty cool. Constant. If this Signy would leave the field by your opponent's effects, instead, you can put 2 cards underneath this Signy into its owner's trash, and if you do, you just down the Signy. That's all you do. It just downs it instead of leaves the field. And then its enter ability is you can take up to 4 cards from your enter zone and put it under this Signy. Now, the reason why it's here is because this is an incredibly cool effect.
Yes.
There's very few Signy that can basically say, meh, I'm going to survive no matter what. It's really hard to get rid of.
It definitely negates a lot of things.
And
just zeroes it out.
Yeah, it negates a lot of things too, which is pretty cool. Downside, 4 enter, an opponent can play around it, right? All the opponent needs to do, basically, is say, okay, it doesn't say that I can't, kill it with like a spell, or it says leave the opponent's ability by your opponent's effects, which could do it, but you could also just kill it in combat.
Yeah, there's nothing in here that says that it wouldn't be affected through combat.
And like, let's say your opponent has a soul that would be something that this wants to basically be like, aha, no, I'm gonna stop it, right? You just kill it in combat with a different Signy, and then you do the attack with the one with the soul, or attack with the one with the lancer. Like, it's got a lot of these things that are kind of relevant. This is just an unreliable card once you really unravel the onion layers to it. Is it powerful? Sure. But you are putting a lot of eggs in the basket. You can put either 2 enter or 4 enter into it to do absolutely nothing. That's not good.
Yeah. If you're gonna take the time to put this in your deck, you're gonna want to put all 4 cards under it and use them.
Yeah, there's some decks like, for example, Espertama, that's gonna look at you put this out there and be like, cool, you enter burned yourself 4? Great, thank you. The next one is Monom.
Mamo.
Monom. Yeah, whatever. You did it. Phantom Terror Beast. Now, aside from getting our video demonetized,
my god.
The other thing that it's doing,
I don't want to say anything.
is at the beginning of your attack phase, put all Signy on your field. All Signy on your field get a power boost, and then twice a turn, whenever a Terror Beast Signy on your field with power 10,000 or greater attacks, you get to enter charge 1. So this is a really, really easy way to enter charge 2. And it also does it during sort of the right time to do it, which is during the attack phase. It ends up being a pretty okay card if you do that. The Terror Beast package, yeah, it would like this. Terror Beast's like enter charging.
It also pumps itself and it enter charges off of itself.
And Tiffany and I, we can't stress enough how important the pump is. Everyone's really relying on Machina Smash. This is just like a way to get around it.
I mean, it only does negative 12,000. That's all we're saying.
Yeah.
So if your Signies are suddenly 13 or more, that's not going to do anything.
Correct. And it doesn't take much to boost 12,000s out of the way. And this boosts 10,000s out of the way. And there's a fair amount of 10,000s that you'd want to keep around too. So we've done the lightning round. We are now down to the normal round. So let's talk about these a little bit more carefully. Tiffany, would you like to read the first one?
Sure. We'll start with Ultra Superheroes.
I think we will see this one quite a bit.
This is a blue piece. It costs 1 colorless. It is a Dream Team piece, and it says, if there is a white Lurig on your field, look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Add up to 2 cards from among them to your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. Then, if there's a red Lurig on your field, vanish target Signy on your opponent's field with power 12,000 or less. Then, if there's a black Lurig on your field, put the top 10 cards of your opponent's deck into their trash.
It is worth noting that it costs 1 colorless, and it also is a blue piece, which means you won't get all 3 effects. You will get 2 of those effects, because you have to run a blue L-Rig to do this, so you'll notice that it doesn't get everything.
We mentioned in the past that there's a Japanese ruling that allows you to kind of more or less ignore the colors on like pieces and stuff like that. That's not valid in the English format right now, so we're not judging this card based off of that.
Yeah, so when you run these things, which I believe are called the colored pieces, then you are going to always look at 2 of them. The cool thing with this one in particular is none of those options are bad. There's not a single one that you wouldn't be like, no, that's a good one to play.
And it's cheap.
Yeah, if you're playing white, blue, black, you're going to end up with a mill option, which generally speaking is going to refresh the opponent once, and these decks need some damage output, so that is a pretty good one. Not to mention, you will also get some deep reach. You can get 2 cards. They can both be guards, for example. Very strong. If you end up playing this in a white-red deck, well, then you end up with a pretty good way to card search for what you need, refill your hand because you're going aggro, and then you also get to open a lane. And then if you're playing this in a black-red deck, you get to open a lane and mill the opponent out, which breeds do a damage, so it's really aggressive. There's not a single way that this you slice this that you're like, oh, I'm mad with the way that it goes.
Yeah, this seems like a really beneficial, well-rounded card. Moving on to the next one, we've got Death Beam Diva. It is a black piece that costs 2 colorless. It is also a Dream Team piece, and it says, if there is a red Lurig on your field, and your opponent's center Lurig is level 3 or more, your opponent chooses 3 cards from their enter zone and puts them into their trash. If there are 2 or fewer cards, they put all of them into the trash. Then, if there is a blue Lurig on your field, draw 3 cards. Then, if there is a green Lurig on your field, target Signy on your field gains Lancer until end of turn.
Yeah. I mean, so 2 enter to basically... we've always go to the top, which is 3 enter, search your deck for a card, and grab the card that you want, like a silver bullet. And take out 3 of the opponent's enter. This is 2 enter to get rid of your opponent's 3 enter.
Then you draw 3 cards.
You draw 3 cards.
If you're playing blue, or you can give something Lancer if you're playing green.
Yeah.
Which is something that we've said before is the type of support that green needs to become a little bit more viable is on-demand Lancer.
Yep.
Things like that.
And the fact that this doesn't just give a green Signy Lancer, it just gives something Lancer. I made basically Bang was like, hey, what if Phalaris has Lancer? That's like basically it as a deck, and it's fantastic. And there's a lot of things that you can do to add to that to like be like, yeah, this is pretty good. Anna Mirage with Lancer, for example, great. This is a really good piece anyway you slice it. I think, and this might be a little bit crazy to say, but drawing 3 cards is sort of the equivalent of searching your deck and finding a specific card in power level. One is more like raw power, that's the drawing, and the other one is more like silver bullet power, which is the search. So I think both are comparable, slightly different, but comparable. So this is something that you could be running in any sort of aggro deck to get yourself an edge. I think you probably use this in a more aggressive deck more than anything else.
It certainly seems aggressive. That is for sure.
All right, so the next piece is Colorful Wish.
Woo.
So this one is a red piece that says, it's a Dream Team piece, and it costs 1. It says, if you have a white Elrig on your field, add target Signy with a guard from trash to your hand. It's so used to saying without that I was like,
it's with a guard.
So you get a guard to your hand. This is one of the few ways to get a guard to your hand, by the way, for like an enter. It usually costs at least 2. If there's a green Elrig on your field, vanish target Signy the opponent controls with power 10,000 or more. And if there's a black Elrig on your opponent's field, then you can add up to 1 target level 2 Signy and 1 target level 3 Signy from your trash to your hand. So this is sort of mid tier, right? We sort of put these on slides according to their power level. This is a little less powerful than the other 2. The other 2 are your most powerful ones.
It's got a few more constrictions with it. So for instance, the thing that you're getting out of your trash is a guard, like specifically. You can only vanish target Signy with 10,000 or more, which most of the time in this particular type of format, I mean, a lot of things are going to be 10,000 or more.
Yeah,
it'll cover more bases than Machina Smash.
Yep.
For lack of a better way of saying it. And then the black will get you back a 1 target level 2 and 1 target level 3. Yeah. So again, like, it's all going into like specifics, if that makes sense, but it doesn't make it a bad piece. There's definitely times that I would pay 1 to get a guard back at the very least.
Any way you slice this, it ends up being pretty powerful for 1 enter. 1 enter to draw 3 cards, and your best 3 cards that you can think of, great. 1 enter to vanish something and get a guard back. Awesome, right? Like, we liked, not too long ago, we liked Burning Curiosity, which is basically 1 enter, vanish target Signy. This basically can read 1 enter, vanish target Signy, draw 2 cards, or 1 enter, vanish target Signy, get a guard back, right? Like, those are fine. Those are fine options. But overall, a little less powerful because they're not quite as versatile as the other options are. These have specific cases where they're pretty good, and then other cases where they're not so great, unlike the other card, which basically are just always good. The next 2 that we've got here, and these are still powerful, but are on the bottom rung of the power level for these cards, is going to be Aggressive Knight. This is the white piece that costs 2. It's a Dream Team. If you've got a blue Elrig on your field, you get to look at your opponent's hand and choose a card, and they have to discard it. That could be a guard, by the way. It doesn't say non-guard. If there's a green Elrig on your field, you get to enter charge 3. And then if there's a black Elrig on your field, then you get to target a Signy on the opponent's field. It gets negative 15 power, 15k till end.
I mean, that will wipe out just about anything.
Pretty much anything, yeah.
Pretty much anything.
Like, Tamago is the only one that
outside
survives
of, like, the Terra Beast package, or, like, Tamago.
Yeah. So the reason why, again, this is lower on the power rung is basically it's if you have the niche that needs to be filled for this, you'll get there, which is basically that you don't have a lot of enter to spend. If you're like really, really tight on enter but still want powerful effects, this will work for you because this basically can pick any one of these two options and then gain an enter, right? Because if you're enter charging 3, then you will always get an enter. It's also got a niche opportunity of being able to kill something your opponent controls and make them discard a card. If you're like really hard up on ways to deal with the opponent's signies and really hard up ways on deal like a specific amount of interruption for your opponent, then this can do that. And then the last piece is Colorful Ensemble. What's that, Tiffany?
This is going to be your green piece. It costs 2 colorless and is another Dream Team piece. This one says, if there is a white Lyriga on your field, return target Signy on your opponent's field to its owner's hand. Then if there is a red Lyriga on your field, target level 3 or more Signy on your field gains Assassin until end of turn. Then if there is a blue Lyriga on your field, freeze target Lyrig on your opponent's field.
So this one is powerful in only 2 ways. Which is why this is on the lower end of the power thing. The first one is there are some niche opportunities where you're like, I really want to freeze my opponent's Elrig, right? Some decks are not so great at that. Tama doesn't like it. Neither does Dash Hirana. So freezing the opponent's Elrig there is quite powerful, but you want to be in a meta where you know that that's going to be above 50% hit rate for you in order for it to be good. The other reason it can be good is basically this is, in a weird way, White Heaven Plus. It's like a White Heaven 2.0.
How so?
So,
first of all, it's green, so...
Yeah, so White Heaven, you need to be mono white, or mostly white, right? You need 2 white Elrigs to make it roll, and it is 3 enter, right? And specifically white and 2 enter. This is 2 colorless, so you don't have the restriction of being this, but the restriction here is that you need to be playing a deck that is green, red, and white. But then you kind of do something that green, red, white would like, which is enter deny simultaneously while also dealing with pretty much anything on the field and being aggressive still.
Yeah.
So with white, you get to bounce a Signy, and then with red, you get to give a Signy Assassin. So it mimics what White Heaven can do for 1 enter less, basically.
Yeah, not bad. I am a pretty big fan of these Dream Team pieces. I think they're going to be really interesting to see.
Yes. Moving on to the next slide, you'll see that we have a Tama assist line here. You'll see this one. It's good. I when I first was looking at this with Tiffany, I was like, how good can it really be? And then we started testing Dasher on, and we're like,
oh no.
It is good. So these ones are very simple. What do they do?
I mean, it's basically just bounce and then attack multiple times.
Right. For how much enter?
For nothing.
Nothing.
Not only does it not cost anything to grow the level 1, it costs nothing to grow the level 2.
Right.
The only catch with both of those is that they're both main phase timing. But,
Correct.
for free, who cares?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, this kind of replaces the idea of full-on aggression that Anj assist line gives, and gives a different way to be, full-on aggression. So, the thing with Tama Loud Voice and Tama Aura, you basically can go, I don't know what my 3rd assist is. I'm an aggro deck. Yep, this works. Aggro has this thing in almost all card games, right? Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, all these different card games that you can think of, where there's sort of this acceleration that goes on, right? As the mid-range and control decks get better at stabilizing, aggro decks need to become faster to compete or have an I win button. Those are the options. An I win button, for example, is like aggro dredge in Magic the Gathering, just like, oh, look at that. I have 10,000 things on the board and they're all 1,000,000 power and I'm attacking you. Do I win or do I lose? And if the opponent goes like, no, you lose, I stabilize. You go, okay, good game. So I think playing Tama Loud Voice and Tama Aura is basically just that in a nutshell.
Sure.
You give up almost all your defensive power and you just put all the points in aggression and you're a glass cannon now.
Yeah.
But here's the problem is with glass cannons, right? You either need to be good enough that it doesn't matter, or it's just like it's a terrible card.
Yeah.
The the thing is, though, and this is why I'm always careful about saying something's really good when it's just purely aggressive, is you have to be a good card to do it. And this does actually speed up aggro's game clock enough that this plus Entwined Supremacy, you're gonna kill out decks just with that combo alone.
Yeah.
Seriously,
yeah,
if you guys have a white Elrig and you're just like, you know what, I could be a little bit more aggressive, and you just put this plus Entwined Supremacy, you're gonna start winning more games.
Yeah, for sure. The red whites decks are gonna be super aggressive with lots and lots of support from white.
Yep.
Speaking of red, what do we got here?
Hey, we got a Rill Flame Dance plus a Rill Drawn Sword. So these are on here. I think they're a little less powerful, but there's a world where they become more powerful, which is that Rill's Flame Dance allows you to vanish target Signy on the opponent's field with power 5,000 or less and gives you 2 coins. The next one is Rill Sword Drawn, which costs 2 enter to grow and is level 2, has attack phase timing, and vanishes opponent's Signy, but then has a once per game ability that you can play as an action on your turn. So you basically get 2 uses out of this card. You can pay red, colorless, and vanish target Signy on the opponent's field.
I do like that a lot. I like the idea that we'll be able to get some more, just get some more mileage out of our assists.
Installments are really good. We've talked about how installments on assist Elrigs are especially really good, but installments that you're more flexible on the timing costs that you can pay for are even better.
I didn't know that you had a cap of 5 coins.
You do get a cap of 5 coins. You probably never blow past it ever, but it's very rare to blow past it.
Well, I suppose so. You know what? Yeah, you're right.
Even the most that you get, I think the most that you get is with Aya, which is 4 coins. So if you use this immediately after having 4 coins with Aya and you haven't spent any, you don't get the 6 coin.
Oh, that's good to know.
It's one of the rare cases.
Yeah.
This is also gonna live or die on how good coins are. I've said this multiple times to anyone who wants to listen, but your level 1, like if you can get your level 1 to open a lane or do some other kind of thing that you normally do, enter charge, draw some cards, whatever, plus something else, it's a really good card, even if it's more narrow, right? And this thing can't take out a ton of Signies. It can take out only 5,000 or less.
Yeah, I mean, it's a solid, turn 1.5 to 2 response.
That's what I'm saying. Though you're going to use it in this early turn, and so this is going to live or die on how good coins are. Coins are okay right now. There's not a single coin card that you're like, yeah, let me build a deck around this yet.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to be running this right now, but in a world where money is everything, then you might have like coins that are actually really, really worth being spent. And in that scenario, this card's going to become much better.
All right, moving on. We've got 2 lovely level 3 blue Signy. We've got Tamago Memorial Galactic Queen. That's your level 3 12,000. And Daihoikita. No, I said that wrong. I know I've said this wrong before. What did we call this one? Just squid?
This is just a squid.
It is a squid.
It is a squid. So Tama Memoria, I want to read it because I like Tama.
All right, go for it.
I don't have a bias. You have a bias. What if Bang shows up on here? I guess my true colors are really going to be shown.
Which is green and blue.
Which is green, blue, and white.
Yep. All right, what does Tamago do?
Tamago does at the end of your turn, guess what? You get to draw a card. Who doesn't love drawing cards?
Blue loves drawing cards.
Hey, at the end of your opponent's turn, your opponent has to discard a card at random. This is a level 3, 12,000 power, though, right? And you're like, all right, well, hold up. This thing needs to survive to the end of my turn and survive to the end of my opponent's turn for me to do a random drain. I don't know, Andrew. Hold on, there's more. It enters abilities. You can down it. This Signy gets 8,000 power until the end of your next turn, making it a 20k.
I mean, that is just a lot.
So literally every time I've seen Tamago played against me in testing or with anyone else, right? I always look at it and go, turtle. Go in that turtle shell. So I just have to assume Tamago is just like being like, I'm gonna be as fluffy as possible, and like just like sinks into her mascot uniform.
And you know what? I can see her doing that.
Yeah.
Fair play.
She just turns into this big fluff ball that can't be hit anymore.
I will say that I've played this card a couple times. You guys have probably seen this in our Versus video.
Yeah.
But those two auto abilities are really difficult to remember, and they are well worth remembering.
Yeah.
So please, if you're going to play this card, make sure that you're hitting those autos. Otherwise, this is just going to be a 20k wall for no reason for you.
I mean, look, what's better than random drain? A free random drain on a stick, you know?
On a stick.
On a stick.
What does that mean?
So it comes from Magic where you say a beat stick, which I guess this is not a beat stick.
No.
It's more a wall than anything else.
It's a wall stick.
It's evolved to basically saying anything that has a body can be a stick.
Okay.
So it's a random drain on a stick.
Sure.
If you're in a deck that's like defensive, and most defensive things want those abilities that it also has, this is right up your alley. You know, if you're a fan of the whole put down, remember, and down it immediately, this is pretty good.
All right. Now we also have Dai Hoika. Dai Hoika.
Yeah, speaking of the complete opposite of what decks that want walls do.
This one is a blue level 3 Signy. It's got 10,000 power. Auto, at the beginning of your attack phase, discard up to 3 cards. Target Signy on your opponent's field gets minus 3,000 power for each card discarded this way until end of turn. Enter. If there are 3 or more blue Signy on your field, draw a card. Interesting.
So you end up with a card that draws you a card. Again, any cards that get you resources, good cards. This needs to have a lot of blue Signy out there, which there are some decks that really care about being more mono blue than not. For example, Aya end up being a more mono blue deck. Umir ends up being a more mono blue deck. Hell, even Tamago is a control deck, and it's a bit greedy with its enter, but it can end up being more mono blue than you'd expect. So, and then what's blue really good at? Having cards in hand. Discarding those cards so that way you can give something up to negative 9,000, which, spoiler, I don't think I've ever used it to give it negative 9,000. I think I've done negative 6,000 once, and then every other time it's been discard 1 card for negative 3,000.
Yeah, just to get something out of the way.
Yeah, utility Signy are all level 3,000. This game was like, remember when it was like, hey, I'm a level 1 with 7,000 stats. You can't Lancelot me.
No.
This game, that part is way gone. We play 3,000. It was like mono min the game.
5,000's max, and only if it's a Lancelot.
Yeah, you're playing a lot of 3,000s in this game nowadays.
Yeah, this one has a lot of really great flexibility to it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're playing mono blue. You might even play this in the same deck as Tamago.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to Overclock Gear, who commented on our verse video not too long ago, where I'm just going to go ahead and paraphrase it. He talks about some different options we could have done to win the game a little bit differently with our mono blue Aya build. And one of the things that he noticed was when Aya flips something over, the person who controls that trigger is still the Aya player, which means that the Aya player controls the timing of would you like to flip it over. So if an opponent if you do that to a 3,000, the opponent flips it over, and the opponent goes, yeah, I would like to flip it over, and they flip it over, you can kill it afterwards because you can stack your own triggers the way that you want to stack them in Wixoss if you're the active player. The other thing that you can do is you can be like, hey, this has a Signy on top of it that's 3,000 power. Like, for example, Yuki or something. I don't know. And you can say, since you've Yuki'd something over on top of this turned face down Signy, you can say, I'm gonna do the Aya flip resolve first. Oh, you don't want to pay it because there's a Signy on top of it? Great. Now I'm gonna do this trigger, give it -3, give the Signy that's on top of it negative 3,000. I get a free lane to attack down. So controlling your timing with this Aya thing is pretty strong. So thank you, Overclock Gear, for that tip. It's spicy.
Yeah, it actually would have made a huge difference if we had played it like that. It's almost like not to like get off on a tangent. It kind of reminds me of like the Hastalic timing for Umir, where like you get like 3 triggers every attack phase, but they're all your triggers, so you can resolve them in any order that you want.
Yep.
Good to know. All right, moving along. We've got some white cards here. We've got Flash Cards, who is so cute.
Yes.
And Over Pursuit. Flashcards, Blessed Mind. It's a level 2 Signy.
We don't usually see level 2s in this list.
We do not. 8,000 power, auto. At the beginning of your attack phase, if there are 3 or more white Signy on your field, you may pay 1 white. If you do, return target Signy on your opponent's field with 3,000 or less to its owner's hand.
All right, so we just talked about how often you're going to find 3,000 or on your
Like
opponent's-
often.
Often enough.
Often enough.
So this needs to be in a mono white deck. Right? It's got to be if there are 3 or more, which is, by the way, specific wording. Now, sometimes it's like if all of the Signy on your field is white, which means that you can get away with like if something gets vanished or if you don't have the way to fill out your field. Not the case with this scenario.
This one needs a full field.
A full field, and they all got to be white. But you can pay white, and then then you can bounce something 3,000. It's quite good. I don't think I'd go past a 3 of in any mono white build with this, but if you're a mono white card that wants aggro, it's good for that. Hey, here's a funny little tidbit I saw while I was replacing this on the slide, because we had the Japanese version up, and then I replaced it with the English version so you guys can read it. She's got English words.
Yeah,
right?
She's practicing English.
Which I thought would have been funny if they also altered the art to be Japanese words, because in the Japanese thing, she also has English words on it. So
gotcha.
She's not teaching. I guess in Japan she's teaching them how to speak English. In America, she's just like, well, you guys might need to speak better English than what you're doing.
You know what? Fair enough.
You got SATs.
Have you guys heard how we pronounce some of these cards? I mean, fair enough. Fair game. All right, moving on to Over Pursuit. This is a cheap white spell. It only costs 1 white. And it says, return target level 1 Signy on your opponent's field to its owner's hand. If there are 3 or more white Signy on your field, enter charge 1. It's decent.
Nice. I think it's good. So yeah, it's got some restrictions. 1, you want 3 white Signy on your field, right? And this is, again, one of the ones where it's like you got to have 3 in there to do it. You can't cheat it. You can't put down 1 white Signy and go, haha, do the spell and then fill out my field with red cards.
No.
No, you gotta do a 3 white Signy.
I mean, you don't have to, but it ends up paying for itself if you do.
And I think that is worth it. Although I will say that I've actually put this in decks that don't have enough white Signy for this ever to reliably go off. And you end up with a scenario where you're just spending 1 enter to bounce it. But white blue decks lack great ways to interact with the opponent's field for cheaply. This is one way to do it. So you could end up doing it just in that scenario. Plus, this does help with enter starving because it bounces. So I've even done this in certain red builds that have a little bit of a white splash, just as a way to like control your opponent's enter a little bit more. Overall, it's a pretty good card. You're going to basically, up until turn 4, more or less, have 3/3/1 fields. So you basically will always have a target for it.
All right, let's look at our next slide. We've got level 1 Yuzuki Memorial Phantom Dragon. It's a 3,000 level 1 red.
That is.
Ooh, all right. Auto, at the beginning of your attack phase, if there are 4 or more cards in your opponent's enter zone, you may pay 1 red, 2 colorless. If you do, your opponent chooses cards from their enter zone and puts them into your trash. Also comes with a life burst.
Yep.
The life burst is vanish target Signy on your opponent's field with power 8,000 or less.
So that life burst may seem familiar to you guys. Celebre, for example, has that life burst as a 5,000 and as a vanilla. This is 3,000. So there's arguments to be made that matters. In some scenarios, it does. There are also arguments to be made that a red deck will take as many of those effects as possible. That is the life burst. So this probably just it may not supplement all 4 of your Celebres. It may end up being that you're running like 3 of these 2 Celebres. But this has a utility to it, and a utility that grows with the game, right? You're probably not using it early on for its ability, which is a strike against it. But you might be using this later on to be like a way to just get you to the point where you can enter burn your opponent out of being able to use their 3-stop.
Yeah. I don't know. My only hang up with this is that the math is not super great. For instance, you're paying 3
Yes.
to burn them 2.
Yes.
And only if they have 4 or more.
On the flip end, most cards that you play in red can only enter burn 1 card. So getting someone down from 6 to 4 is much better than getting someone down from 6 to 5.
It is
when it comes to a 3-stop.
Yes, and for a lot of Lurig assists, that's an awkward number.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of almost always want 4 or more to get the most out of your assist grows, depending on who you've chosen for your Lurig team. But, yeah, I mean, two enter will make a difference for getting the full effect out of your attack phase Lurigs.
And I think there is something to be said that red is currently hurting for really good utility level 1 Signy. Like white, black, and blue have it in spades, which is one of the reasons why those colors have sort of rise to the top of Wixoss lately. Red and green do not have very much good level 1s that are utility based. And this helps. This is utility based. Now it's still offensive because enter burning is in essence offensive. So it doesn't dig red out of its hole, right? It's not good. It's not like, see, a card, white got the knockoff Hakat, but if red got it, they would have loved it, you know? So I take it. I still will take it. It's still an upgrade over what you've got right now, and you will definitely see it almost every red aggressive deck for probably a year or 2.
Ooh, that's a big prediction.
Yep.
But I can totally see it. Well, this next one's featuring your favorite. Do you want to read it?
Tamago? Oh, Tamago, what happened to your machine? It's a failure. So the spell costs 1 blue, and it has an ability on it that's like, hey, you can only pay this if the opponent has 1 or less card in their hand, or you have a Tamago, a Nova, or a Bang Signy on the field. There's a pop-up occasionally, but really you're saying, hey, this is a blue card that asks my opponent to have 1 or less cards in their hand. Easy peasy. I've already done it.
Yeah.
The timing is a little awkward, a little more than I wish it was, because with some of the best discard being Bruno and Monomin, that happens on attack phase, which means the chance to play this has already passed. So it ends up being a little less great than I was hoping for. It has a life burst ability, too, by the way, which says, down target Signy on the opponent's field, your opponent chooses a card and discards it.
Down target Signy on your opponent's field and freeze it.
Right. So, and that's better, right? Then there's a lot of down target Signy and freeze it, then draw a card. This is better. Down target Signy, freeze it, and also make the opponent discard a card. That is the better version.
Just kick them while they're down.
It's the better version of the life burst. So, and it gives negative 8,000, by the way. We skipped to what it actually does. It gives negative 8,000 and you play it for 1 enter. Blue's hurting for ways to deal with Signy. And sometimes blue wants to enter starve the opponent, and giving it negative 8,000 is more of a aggressive, not enter starvey thing to do. So it's got points taken away on that. So it's a little awkward to play.
Yeah.
But you'll see it as a 1 of or 2 of in these discard heavy decks. It's just a way to get like, I'm out of Elrig. I'm out of assist things to do. I need some more, just a little bit more push in my deck. And look, I found it. Great. Cool.
Speaking of Bang Memoria, we've got Bang Memoria Jade Evil is a level 1 Signy, 2,000 power, and it's very simple, very to the point. Enter, discard up to 2 cards, enter charge 1 for each card discarded this way.
Look,
the end.
Look.
Beautiful.
Look, the bar is low for green. All right?
Oh.
I will take a level 1 Signy that enter charges 1. You know, and you don't have to discard, but it hasn't happened yet. They won't do it. They won't make it exist. Enter, they have Wixoss as a development company, and we're talking about this in Japanese meta too, have been just incredibly stingy with the ways to gain enter. You want to draw 1 million cards? You want to draw your deck twice in 1 turn? That's fine.
You want to refresh twice in a game? Go for it.
Yeah, you know, except you end your turn at that point, but because there's this weird specific rule about that. But like, you want to have every single card in your hand. You want to discard it to make the opponent like lose all of their Signy on the field. Perfectly reasonable. You want more than 3 enter a turn? I don't know if that's possible. So Bang is kind of interesting. you're gonna end up playing it more than I think people give it respect
I think
for.
that this is honestly like quintessential level 1 utility Signy.
I
Like, look
know.
at this. So check this out, right? So it says discard up to 2 cards, which means that first of all, you don't have to discard any if you don't want to.
Yep.
Or you could discard only 1. And this is great because if you're playing this on your first turn, honestly, I'd much prefer to get 2 cards out of my hand to give myself a really early edge with Enter.
Yep.
But later on in the game, because it's a level 1, you'll be able to play this through your entire game. And sometimes you either just need a level 1 Signy to like fill out your field, no problem there, you don't have to discard, or sometimes you just need like 1 extra Enter to be able to like do some big thing that you have to
And
do.
we talked
or,
about...
you know, you're being taxed for something and it's basically like it's almost like a free Xeno cluster.
Yeah, exactly. This is going to be a card that you'll see people play, and it rewards really smart play. So if you were to say, hey, I have a card that says when this enters, you have to discard 2 cards and you enter charge 2, I'd be like, ooh, I don't know. That's a pretty steep cost. You said, I have a card that says when it enters, you have to discard 1 and then you enter charge 1. I'd be like, that's really good. It's fantastic. The fact that this can do any of those scenarios is much better than you think. The real question is not how many times do you play this and never enter charge. The real question is how often do you play this enter charge 1 or enter charge 2? Because you can decide your games based on that. Now, you'll be up against opponents, for example, that are going to discard you down. What's a great way to basically depower their discard cards? Not have a hand is one of the options. And this can allow you...
It's like how Mr. Miyagi says, no be there.
Yeah, so this allows you... This allows you to... I got a delayed laugh on that one. It hit a little late. This allows you to basically play like that, where you can be like, well, you're going to make me lose my cards in my hand anyways, and you know where they're better instead of the trash in the enter. So you can enter charge them.
For sure.
This is also going to help some decks that have enter issues and just get there a little earlier, right? But more importantly, and this is kind of a big one, is that you also are going to be rewarded for drawing a ton of cards with this, right? So, like, for example, let's say you're playing an L rig that draws you 3 cards, because those exist, right? And you're like, well, I'm drawing 3 cards, but I'm really only going to be playing 3 cards this turn. And I've got the 2 cards I drew at the beginning of my turn. That puts me at 5 cards. I don't really need these extra 2. Let's just go ahead and throw them and turn them into enter. Right? This not only that, because if you're playing a deck that draws a bunch of cards anyways and you need ways to discard for value, you're going to find this card more often, which means that this is really good as a 2 of in your deck to just pull it out. Now, I don't necessarily think you should be running this in the same deck that you're like doing a lot of other discard effects. Like, for example, if you're like, yep, I'm playing the black cards that I can discard cards in my hand to give the opponents negative effects, and I'm also playing Monomin, well, you probably got enough uses for the cards in your hand that you're not going to be able to afford to play Bang there. There's plenty of decks that don't use the cards in their hand and just end the game with like 5 cards in hand. It would have been better if those were enter for you at that point. More efficient.
So looking at our next Signy, we've got...
And Bang, both of them are great. Both the arts are awesome. I'm just gonna say it. All right, you can move on.
All right, very good. Justice for Bang. We've got White Doomed Evil, which ironically is a black card. It's a level 1 Signy, 3000 power, and it says auto. When this card is discarded by your effect, you may pay 1. If you do, add this card from your trash to your hand. Life Burst, you may discard a card. If you do, target Signy on your opponent's field gets minus 12,000 power until end of turn. And shout out to the hat design. Oh my god, impeccable.
Do you think when it's on her head, it's like Slytherin? Just all the time telling her where she's supposed to be.
Probably.
I assume she's a black card, therefore she's Slytherin.
Such a dumb joke.
Hey, I think a white is a form of zombie or kind of undead,
is it?
By the way.
Is it? Because it's not spelled white like the color, but it's spelled white like the direction right.
Yeah, I've watched Game of Thrones. I think that's white. What those like gnoll zombies are called. Anyways, what do you use the frozen ones that that were walking around up north from the wall? Have you watched the Game of Thrones?
No.
Have you watched the Game of Thrones?
No, and that's not what this podcast is about.
Hey, so this has
Please
an
feel
effect.
free to correct us in the comment section down below.
This has an effect where the card that's discarded by your effect, like, you can pay 1, and if you do, you get to put it back to your hand. You basically need to have ways to self-fuel your own little combos with this for it to be good. Which means that right now, is it a fantastic card? Probably not, but there are ways to abuse it. One of them, for example, is... this one's for Autumn. She's going to listen intently here now. If you're playing X, right? And X has the ability that when you give a soul to one of your signies, you discard a card and then you draw a card, right? If you discard this card, you change that ability to basically be X has an ability where you pay 1, draw a card, which is pretty good in red. It doesn't normally have great draw abilities, right? There are also blue cards out there where you're like, yeah, if I discard this, I basically just Monomin, let's say, for example. This is your Wombo combo with Monomin, where it changes Monomin's fundamental nature, which Monomin says, hey, at the cost of your own cards, you don't get card advantage, but your opponent also doesn't get card advantage, right? You change that to being like, well, if you have Enter lying around, you can use it to screw your opponent's resources because you pay 1 to make your opponent discard a card. So there are ways to abuse. Note, this is an auto ability, and very specifically, we've talked about this before on the podcast, does not say once per turn.
Oh.
And anytime you see an auto ability that does not say once per turn and it looks like you could abuse it, that means that in the future, if they ever make something that abuses it, you're like, mm-hmm. So, like, let's say, for example, I don't know, they make a card that says, discard a level 1 from your hand, you enter charge 2. You can be like, wahahaha, wombo combo, let's go forever. So you always got to be on the lookout for some of those wordages. So again, this is one of those cards where you look at it, you're like, not great right now, but maybe.
Yeah, keep it in the back of your mind, in the back of your deck box.
Yeah, it's in that toolbox.
It's in the toolbox. All right, moving on to this next slide.
Nothing. We're done.
We're done?
We're done. That's it.
Oh.
So that's all the cards we thought were good in this set. Which means that I know whenever I say that, I rage bait someone to be like, you forgot this card! And the answer is probably.
Probably. Let us know in the comment section down below, because you never know. We might bring it into a new list like we did with ProtoEnergy. Because
yeah, guys,
sometimes...
you've been great popping out stuff on our comments and like, you didn't think about it in this way. And I'm like, oh, you know what? You're right.
Because, I mean, honestly, like I said, sometimes you guys are smarter than us.
Yeah, and we love it when you guys give us that tips so we can share it to everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for listening in to our best cards of the Spread Diva set. If you guys like this podcast and you want to listen to more, please make sure that you subscribe. Also, please make sure you check out our community page, because we put up polls where you can vote on the decks you want us to play against each other. And check out some of our Versus videos there as well. And as always, please, may you always flip a life burst.
Bye.